You're listening to the Love Your Neighbor podcast.
Well, hey, thanks for joining us and welcome to the Love Your Neighbor podcast. It's good to have you with us. I also want to thank our sponsor, Brandon Valley Area Chamber of Commerce. Thank you to all the local businesses that are a part and really helping to build a better Brandon. It's been so cool. Thank you for believing in the podcast and believing in this idea that we can build community one conversation at a time. That's really where we're headed. It's what we want to do. And so with that in mind, today I brought a local Brandon resident. You may know this guy. Chase Hoffman is joining us today. Chase Hoffman, thank you for joining us on the Love Your Neighbor podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, we've been waiting for you. We're glad that you're here. Thanks for joining us. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Chase, how you got to live in Brandon, how kind of your Brandon story goes. We'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, so I grew up here in Brandon, and my dad was in the military, and so we moved around a lot growing up, and we eventually settled in the Sioux Falls area, and we moved up from Alabama. But we had originally from South Dakota, so we were coming back home, and so we landed in Brandon. It was late 97, early 1998, I want to say. And I was just starting second grade. And so we landed there and we moved in like kind of by the pool. And my parents rented a house right there. It was me, my brother, and my sister. I got two younger siblings. And it was right up the hill from the pool. So we were like a football throw away from the pool. And we used to always sled down the hill down there and all that stuff. We go down there anyways. And so then eventually as we grew up down the street, it's a funny story because my folks bought their first house, the first house they ever owned. They bought it on a garage sale on the same street that we were living on, like 2 blocks down the street. And it was just really funny because my mom was like that. Like she just went down the street. So it was a garage sale, and they were like, "Hey, we're getting rid of our stuff. We're gonna, we're moving, and the house is for sale." And my mom's like, "All right, can I see inside it?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure." And they brought her in, and she goes, "I'll take it." And comes home, "Hey, I bought a house." And my dad's like, "What are you talking about?"
That's awesome.
So we just moved down the street like 2 blocks. It was great. And then we grew up there. And so, yeah, I've been there ever since. Met my wife in Brandon. She's, her family's from Brandon for 30 years. They've 30 plus years they've been in town. They owned
that's an interesting story, how you met your wife and how you guys got to know each other. Tell us, because she's an older woman, correct?
A cougar type thing, or no. My wife's like 2 years older. My wife's like 2 years older.
2 years older. Yeah. I don't know if that qualifies completely.
No, she was a great deal older than me. And no, I worked for her family it's a cool story because I worked for her family for like 10 years or more before she even noticed me. And so it was kind of a fun story because she'll say I never paid any attention to him, and I just worked for her folks, and they owned the racetrack for a long time, and so that was probably 2012 or so. I'd been there for a while, and I just started kind of hitting on her a little bit, and I'm like, I started to notice her before she really noticed me, and we like to joke about it because the first time I asked her out, she just gave me a rain check. She's like, we'll have to. Maybe some other time. And I was like, oh, well, there goes that, shoot your shot, I guess. And
yeah, sure.
One thing led to another, and next thing you know, she took on, and it was awesome.
So you were persistent. You didn't.
I was persistent. And I can't say that.
For you,
yeah,
that's good.
Yeah,
that's good to keep. But so growing up. So were you a pool rat or were you kind of a racetrack kid, or both?
A little bit of both. I mean, you could see the racetrack from our house. And so I was always like, I could always hear him on Sunday night when I was real little, and we'd go out there. My dad had a little bit of a history helping out his cousins and stuff at races and stuff like that. So he liked racing. We liked NASCAR. We liked all that stuff. So I just had this desire to be there. And so when I turned 14, I applied for a job and to be in the concession area, and because I just wanted to be at the racetrack. And at first I didn't get the job. And I remember I went in and interviewed with my mother-in-law, and I was scared to death. It was my first ever interview. I was 14 years old or whatever, and I sit there and she asked me all these questions, and she's like, "Okay, well, we'll call you if we need you, I never got a call. And my dad actually, he just wanted to do it too, to kind of go to the race, the same reason. He's like, I'll just do this, Sunday nights or whatever. And so he goes and he interviews and they offer him a job. And so he's working at the racetrack. My dad is. He doesn't really need the gig, He's just doing it to do it. And I'm sitting at home. And like 2 or 3 months later, it was like middle of the season. I get a call and they're like, "Hey, we could use some help in our concession stands." And so now I kid around. With them. I'm like, "Hey, you almost didn't hire me, and you almost didn't hire your son-in-law." Can joke, "Hey, the way the world turns, I guess." So,
what could have been?
What could have been? I mean, hey, now we've got a 2 or 3 year old at home, and hey, you never know. You never know. I don't know who lucked out there.
Yeah, well, I think it worked out for everybody.
I think so too. Yeah.
Absolutely.
We're really happy. So,
yeah, a neat family. I've gotten to know obviously your family, and I've met your in-laws and your father. Met them. Family's important to you. I can tell that's a big deal. Talk about your family a little bit and kind of how that helped you stay connected in Brandon, because not everybody that goes to school in Brandon stays in Brandon. So we'll move on, but you chose to come back. Talk about that.
Yeah. So I stuck around because a lot of what kept me around was I didn't really know coming out of high school what I really wanted to do. And so it was the University Center in Sioux Falls. Being there, I had a job. I had a full-time job. And so I was like, I'll just stick around. And we had a rule at my house growing up where my dad was like, okay, you can live in the house as long as you're going to school full-time. Then you don't have to pay rent. And I'm like, okay, so I'm going to stick at home. I'm going to work, and I'm going to go to school. And the way that played out was, if I wouldn't have been home, I kept working at the racetrack. I kept working at Sunshine at the time, and I met Ashley. And so it was like one thing kind of led to another. And if I would have went off to school, who knows where I would be, right? And so all those things kind of interconnected. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I think I'm going to stick around. And so moved out of the house before we got married, and then we got married and we eventually bought a house. And so it was one of those things that was like, we could leave, but we've got all these ties. My dad's around here, my brother's around here, my sister, she's an hour away. Ashley's family is all within city limits of Brandon. And so it was like, why leave? And I probably went through a phase of, it was probably a phase of restlessness when we first got married, where I'm like, man, I've lived here all my life. I want to adventure the world. I want to get out and be an adventure. But I think Ashley really kept us grounded a little bit. She kept, the perspective there where, she's like, hey, if we leave, we're going to abandon all of this. And I'm like, you know what? It was hard for me because, I was a little restless. But in the end, looking back at it now, my life, the way the last 5-6 years have gone, I couldn't imagine any other way. It couldn't be better. So, so it's been good. Now we've got the kids really tied us down now, because I couldn't imagine doing that with, if we lived like an hour away. I'm like, how in the heck would we ever have any help? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you've had kids, it's like, it's impossible to take care of them. It takes a village, and it really does take a village to take care of your family. And so that's what we've got in Brandon is we've got everybody here. We got people that are close to us and all that stuff. So
yeah, you've got grandparents in the immediate area that can really help.
Yeah. In a case of emergency, they'll come over and help us. And, and my dad's a half hour away now, and so it's like, it's really simple. And we just recently, we built a home, and during that process, we sold our house about 9 months before we moved into our new home. And we just were like, hey, family, you happen to be here. Can we just room with you guys? And so we did. And I can't say thank you enough to them for that, because it made the transition really stable, and having everybody right here. And you think about the community we have a metro area that it's got everything you need. You have work opportunities, you have entertainment opportunities. We've got great stuff right in town. You don't even have to leave town to be completely self-sufficient. So we're lucky to have that.
Yeah. You talk about a little bit, if you're okay, talk a little bit about your career path. And, you went to school here at the University Center. Talk about a little bit about your career path and where you are today. Kind of update us on that.
Yeah, sure. So University Center, I went through USD, and it was a really cool program because I didn't even have to leave Sioux Falls. I got a bachelor's degree in business administration management, and it was I pretty much got that because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, and it gave me a lot of opportunities. And I worked for Sunshine for 10 years, and that was a great experience. I learned a ton from there. I mean, kind of took a little bit of a windy road and ended up at the bank. Now I'm at First National Bank, Sioux Falls. And it was just kind of crazy because opened my first bank account there when I was 12 or something like that. And my dad got me hooked up, and the people that opened my bank account turned out to be the same people that got me the job at First National. The gals in the teller line there, and I drove through one day, and they've heard I was looking for a gig, and they were like, "Hey, why don't you apply at the bank?" I'm like, "I didn't know I could work at a bank." Like, feels like an exclusive club you could, but it,
Sure.
And I was like, oh my goodness. And I got the job, and I'm like, oh man, this is such a cool thing. And it's such a great community to be a part of. And I do home loans with them, and just get a firsthand look at how the community in this metro area is growing, and just to be a part of it is really cool. So, yeah.
Yeah. Your values, your values that you grew up with, the values of Brandon and the values of Sunshine really, and First National was really a match for you. Talk about where you work and why that's a fit for you.
Yeah, so First National, that's we've got an acronym, and the first values is kind of how we operate. Family is the first thing. F is for family, and that is the biggest one to me because it is a family. It's one big family, and we take care of each other like we're family, and family is that's the thing. And so those values are really ingrained in who I am. It's relationships. The R stands for relationships. And so that's just naturally the type of person that I am. And so it plugs in like a Lego piece. Like I just plug in there like it's meant to be, and it fits. And teamwork and collaboration, all those things are exactly what we like to model, and the type of people that the bank is full of. We got 285 some odd employees, and every single one of them is connected that way and built in and plays an integral part of it. So that's that it almost matches Brandon exactly to a T.
Yeah, and I think that's part local business and First National being in Brandon, investing big time in Brandon is that's a cool thing to see. I bank there, and to see that investment locally is really what community is. It's not just a nice place to live. It's a place to really invest your lives and then watch the fruit of your life multiply.
Yeah.
And that's a cool thing.
Well, and that's the thing about the community and the bank, and being a community bank, is that if the community thrives, the bank thrives, and vice versa. And you see it like the gals that work at the branch in Brandon, they all live in Brandon, or maybe a couple of people in Garrettson or whatever, but like they're all a part of this community. They bleed it. They're here, they're integrated, and they live it. And like the baseball field, like that benefits everybody. That benefits everybody, people in the bank. And those folks that are driving those initiatives and the community involvement, they've got skin in the game. And so it matters, and so that's why I think that's why people go all in, and that's why my wife works there now. Like I came home when I got the job 5-6 years ago. I came home and I'm like, you wouldn't believe it. This place is unbelievable. You gotta check this out. Like the culture. Like I don't get it. I don't understand how this even be possible.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I didn't know you could work at a place like this. And she's just like, yeah, okay. And then she works as a personal banker over there, and so the job opens up, and I eventually talk her into meeting with Val over there at the bank, and she sits down with Val, and they had a 2-hour conversation. It wasn't even an interview. They just sat down and had a 2-hour conversation over coffee. She comes back, she goes, I get it. I get what you're talking about. They're like legit over there, and so it's just that commitment to their people and commitment to the community that really makes a difference. So.
That's cool, man. Well, hey, I appreciate you taking the time, Chase. What's community? You're a dad, your husband, you're a lot of connections in Brandon. But tell us what it means to be community, and why do you love Brandon specifically?
Yeah, I was thinking about that on the way over here, and it's a whole whole cacophony of things. There's not only are the location is perfect. You know, you think about Brandon being like right by, we've got everything we need. But also the people. I think about, I was talking about family before, you know, where we have blood, relatives really close. But I've also got a church that's right here. I've got people I've grown to know over the years that are right here that would drop everything at 2 a.m. and come over and help. I've got everything. We got everything we need. It's safe. I think the school district has been talked about ad nauseum. And so we all know about that. It's fantastic. This is a 5-star community, and it doesn't get much better than that. And I think the biggest piece of it is the people. And I think that, you know, I just got somebody down the other day. I was going ice fishing, and somebody was just from across the street came over and helped me drag my sled up the hill. Like, I don't even know who they are. You know, like that makes all the difference to me. And so young people with young kids like me that come into the community and they want to get plugged in, like, hey, I mean, there's tons of folks like us, and it's a perfect place for a family like that to grow.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Thanks for sharing that story in your life. Appreciate you being here, Chase.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for sharing time with us. We'll see you around. See you around Brandon, man.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us on the Love Your Neighbor podcast. The purpose of the Love Your Neighbor podcast is to build community one conversation at a time. You can help us build that community by sharing the podcast on your social media channels and rating our podcast on whatever platform you're listening from. Another way is to let us know of any neighbors who have a story. Go Leaks!